In efforts to realize economic transformation for all, the Department of Trade and Industry and the Black Business Council is hosting young entrepreneurs from Madagascar. With Madagascar boasting as a leading export market, young entrepreneurs from South Africa are sharing business skills through an exchange program with that country. ANN7's Lerato Moza from the business desk had more.
Pushing ahead with its stance on radical economic transformation, the Black Business Council is currently hosting a Malagasy delegation as part of breaking economic barriers that seems to be hampering real transformation.
Why we're here together, to not just network, but to build significant relationships, to learn from those before us, and to teach those behind us as well. And that, I think, is quite critical, particularly for the youth. We kind of know it all, and I think we need to try to see how we can learn from others and build each other up, as opposed to being independent rebels within the economic space.
The DTI facilitating the program says this is somehow part of the Trade Invest Africa initiative aimed at driving South Africa's economic integration into the rest of the continent.
So Trade Invest Africa works closely with the governments and business in the rest of the African continent to facilitate exports from the continent, exports to the continent from South Africa, as I indicated. So we are also created to be the go-to unit in the DTI for companies looking to trade and invest in the continent.
The Malagasy young entrepreneurs say they expect to benefit from the network created during the exchange program with South Africans.
You can know that actually in Madagascar there is a political crisis, so it's very hard for youth to create their own business. So we are here, we are just delegation, we are 14 people today, but we are more than 100 people who want to create our own business.
The DTI and the Black Business Council have appealed to both South Africa and the Malagasy young entrepreneurs to create their own path and derive benefits from these exchange programs. Lerato Moza, ANN7, Johannesburg.
That was Lerato Moza discussing some interesting things about entrepreneurship. And if you wanted to know who was that guy in the red tie there at the TNA breakfast briefing, that was me. So it was very good to see those two stories showing that we are serious about entrepreneurship. And now live, joined in studio by Luvuyo Manyi. And I'm going to speak to my producers later on because they got the surname wrong, didn't they? It's Luvuyo Manyi, who is a very good friend and colleague of mine's son. And he's doing great things on his side, and I'm hoping that you are going to now help us in understanding what this relationship with us and Madagascar is all about.
No, thank you for the opportunity, sir, and it really is a privilege to be on this platform. I think as the BBC, we've been working quite close with the DTI for a number of years, as they are a key stakeholder towards our drive for black industrializations. As you know, the BBC actually conceptualized the Black Industrialization program. Subsequently, of course, the DTI has been driving that as well and collating the various DFIs towards bringing the funds together towards driving that program. But what we've done, I think it was a great opportunity and initiative driven by the DTI and the government of Madagascar to host some young entrepreneurs, and they're actually doing a program over the next week or so, expose them to various opportunities and initiatives within South Africa. And they actually requested and invited us to actually host them for a session, as we did today, to actually discuss the various opportunities within the council, but also our view on youth-driven entrepreneurship, but youth-also driven professional corporate entrepreneurship, if you will, and how we can facilitate various engagements with the likes of the Madagascar, but not just Madagascar. I think this was just an example to showcase what we are doing as a council towards driving youth economic empowerment at large, not for South Africa, not just for Madagascar, but for Africa at large. I think this was a great platform for us and for the DTI. I think the DTI served a critical role here, demonstrating the various programs that they have, and have included us in a very, very significant way towards the international exposure that they are driving. Because international, I think their role as a DTI towards driving investment in Africa, from South Africa, but even intra-African countries, and they're doing that very, very well as the DTI. The BBC, as you may or may not know, has actually got a lot of bilateral agreements with many African countries and European countries around the world. And through these various missions that we do, we actually engage with various chambers in those various countries for B2B transactions and the likes.
It's less than 20% of our trade takes place in Africa. We have a serious problem. We need to find out what it is that we're supposed to do to penetrate the market. We need to find out how do we make sure that Africa, South Africa and Africa are in sync and that we can start doing more trading. And you're a young individual and I think you've seen the opportunity obviously in the African continent. The question is for me, and I'm running out of time here, my producers are pressuring me, but I just want to find out from you, what significance was this relationship and what business are we going to make out of it?
Let me move back a little and actually take you to the fact that I think we need to move away from the notion that Africa is a dark continent. The narrative, unfortunately, is quite negative around doing business in Africa. We associate doing business in Africa as high risk. We associate doing business with Africa as corrupt. And I think that notion needs to be dispelled immediately. And these are one of the issues that we address today. A number of entrepreneurs actually attended the function this afternoon. Fortunate enough to actually have traveled Africa and actually seen the opportunities that Africa presents. And I think this is what we need to do as Africans in South Africa, but also just globally, to actually promote the African opportunities so far as economics is concerned. I mean, we talk about political freedom, that's one, but that's just a more small step towards real economic growth so far as the country is concerned and the continent is concerned. Yeah. And what we are trying to do as a Black Business Council is drive economic growth through promoting initiatives that actually invest in the IP of Africa. Yeah. And I think that was a goal today. And we really achieved that through the interaction with the Madagascar delegation. Yeah.
One thing you do better than your dad is that you speak less, and I like that. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. That's all the time we have this edition.